Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to focus on how the US President Donald Trump has stated unequivocally that South Africa will not be welcome at the 2026 G20 in Miami in the United States. Now before we get into this video, the overwhelming majority of you that regularly watch my content aren't subscribed to this channel, but you can fix that very easily by just clicking the subscribe button below. It'll be greatly appreciated. Alright, so we all know that mainstream media has had their field day now mocking Donald Trump, mocking the United States, saying that South Africa is a founding member of the G20 and therefore they will be there. Now, there are many ways in which the United States can ensure that this doesn't take place by just making sure that they don't allocate visas to the South Africans that are going to go and attend the G20 in the United States. Added to that, of course, is the fact that they can put pressure on other nations to ensure that they speak out against the things that Donald Trump is speaking out with regards to things that are happening in South Africa. Now, of course, the one lie, if I can put it that way, that Donald Trump is spreading and that isn't true is that he states that there's a white genocide in South Africa. There is no white genocide in South Africa yet. The reason I say yet is because if you look at Gregory Stanton's 10 stages of genocide, it shows that South Africa is at stage 8 out of 10 to meet the genocide threshold. But with that being said, everything else that the United States and specifically President Donald Trump has stated is just asking for 4 things to be changed in South Africa for relationships between the United States and South Africa to open up again. And that is very simple, can easily change the dynamic in South Africa for the better, and also, of course, help the relationship between the United States and South Africa. And that is firstly to condemn Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer as a song and to stop singing it in South Africa. It is to make farm murders a priority crime in South Africa. It is to block and get rid of the Expropriation Act in South Africa, willing buyer, willing seller. And then the last one, which I think is probably the most complicated one for the government to sort out relatively quickly, is to allow American businesses to not have to comply to the insane triple BEE standards in South Africa. That is all South Africa needs to do to open themselves up to trading again with the United States and, benefit to the tune of billions of dollars that even reaches close to trillions of rands. That's all that is needed. 4 simple things to once again get access to our second biggest trading partner and the world's biggest economy. But instead we get this EFF, MK, ANC arrogance, and dare I say some DA arrogance too if you listen to what John Steenhuisen has to say about Donald Trump. Instead of looking at the issues that I think for a democratic country that has a constitution, I think that the requirements that they are asking is not much. But of course, mainstream media in South Africa has backed Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC and act like nothing's wrong in this country and that Donald Trump is 100% crazy and the United States is asking too much of South Africa. And then, of course, Donald Trump showed that he wasn't joking with the following. So as you can see here, News 24 has reported that South Africa has not been invited to the first meeting of the G20, which I think has shut a lot of people up when they were thinking that Donald Trump was mocking South Africa and joking about it. I'm not going to go through this entire article, but I will focus on some of the aspects. Washington has sent invites to the first meeting of G20 Sherpas to all member nations except South Africa. The International Relations Ministry said excluding any nation would destabilize the forum, and member nations have promised to rally in support of South Africa. And that's just the summary. I'm not going to read it any further. What I want to focus on, however, is that we know that mainstream media in South Africa and some international mainstream media outlets like the BBC, Al Jazeera, etc., has consistently mocked the United States and Donald Trump. And then eventually later on they have been proven to either lie, to spread fake news, or they were just wrong in their assessment. And I believe that something similar is going to happen over the next year leading up to the G20 in the United States. I believe that a lot of people think that these nations will come to South Africa's aid and eventually they will boycott the G20. But what these nations don't really know is what is currently being passed as legislation in the United States with bills that have been proposed. And these bills make it very clear that it's not necessarily the accusations that Donald Trump is giving whenever he's asked the questions, why genocide and the treatment of minorities in this country, which the second part I 100% agree with, the treatment of minorities. But I think once the presidents or the ministers of those countries see what the United States is specifically talking about when it comes to what is happening in South Africa. As an example, the 145 race-based laws, the 63 murders every single day, the amount of corruption, the lack of service delivery, the lack of maintaining infrastructure, and then, of course, the relationships that South Africa has with Russia, with China, and then more controversially, with Hamas, with Hezbollah through Iran. Once those things come out and the sanctions start hitting South Africa, then I think that other nations will start changing their tune. It's important to note, however, that South Africa's economy is as big as one of the United States states. Vermont is equal to the size of South Africa's economy. So one state in the United States is as big as our entire economy in South Africa. Oh, even though Vermont has got 650,000 people and South Africa has got 64 million people. The United States economy is 73 times bigger than South Africa. These other nations that's part of the G20 that actually deserves to be there because their economies are some of the biggest in the world, within the 20 economies, the G20, get it? They will eventually start feeling the pressure because they also rely on the United States as a trading partner. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not this bold narrative that these countries are holding up to now, saying, oh, we'll fight for you, we'll make sure that you attend. And I'm sure behind closed doors they are saying that, well, if you can't attend, then we will boycott it. We'll see closer to the time when the actual facts that mainstream media refuses to share with you, when that information is shared with the presidents and with the leaders of those nations. Because I don't see any leader of a country agreeing with a nation like South Africa that's got 145 race-based laws, 63 murders a day, the corruption, the state capture, the alignment with terrorist organizations in other parts of the world. I think once they get that information, then their view might change and suddenly it's, oh, okay, no, but we'll still attend. We'll feel sorry for you, but we have to go and attend. So as much as South African media and a lot of the people on social media are acting like there's not going to be a G20 without South Africa, I do fundamentally believe that that is exactly what is going to happen. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens because South Africa has got a year to change the United States' mind, and they need to really consider those four options that I mentioned earlier because firstly, it is the right thing to do, and secondly, that is all that we need to do to get access to our second biggest trading partner once again. Now, whether or not that happens, that is up to South Africa to decide. That is up to Cyril Ramaphosa to decide, to the GNU to decide on whether or not changing those four things that is reasonable. And I don't see it as an interference of another country in our affairs. I see it as we mostly agree with Western values. We are a capitalist nation. We want to trade with other nations. And if we want to continue to do that with the United States, then these things need to change. Stop being racist towards people because of the color of their skin. Stop singing songs about killing people because of the color of their skin and their culture. Remove any limitations to do business in this country, remove the red tape, and make sure that the people that produce the food in your country, that they are looked after and that you protect them. It's not unreasonable. So time will tell. Either South Africa will need to give in and adhere to these demands, and then it will open up relationships, and I'm pretty sure they'll be welcome at the G20, or they can refuse to do so, lose our second biggest trading partner, and in a year from now, we will be talking about how South Africa was excluded. in the G20, and how all other nations still participated because they actually understand that the United States is the world's biggest economy. And, not 73 times smaller than the economy like South Africa is, but thinking that they can punch at the same weight level as the United States. So time will tell, but let me know your thoughts. Do you think that the G20 will go ahead without South Africa? Do you think other nations will stand united with South Africa? My prediction is that all the nations will still go and attend, and South Africa will be left out in the cold. Unless we finally adhere to the request that the United States and President Trump has proposed to the South African government many, many months ago, when the South African contingency went over to discuss matters, because I'm pretty sure that the United States told them, these are the 4 requirements, adhere to it, or lose us, lose US aid, lose AGOA, and you can go and trade with China, Russia, and with Iran and see how that ends up. So time will tell. Let me know your thoughts. Love to hear it in the comments below. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share this video far and wide. And if you enjoy my content and you enjoy this channel, please consider becoming a member. You can do so by clicking the join button below, and it'll cost you 39 Rand 99 a month, and that is in support of me and this channel. And that's all I got to say. Till later, cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre.